Hello, hello. Welcome to a very special day. We are 43 seconds away from a 5 round tournament that currently has 20 players registered. That player might increase over the next 30 seconds before it begins. But we're going to play 5 rounds. There's 15 minutes per person per game, plus 10 seconds each per move. And you have to have a rating of 1500 or above to join. Currently, it looks like I'm the only Aussie in the mix. We got some Canadians, some Americans, some Spanish, is this Italia or Mexico? Mexico, Brazilian. We got them all, but only one Aussie, so let's see if I can carry the flag well. Let's do this. Dedicated to my wife. Let's do this. We're playing against an 1833 to start with. We've got the black pieces. Let's show this guy what it's all about. Waiting for him to make a move. Just like John Bartholomew, I got my coffee, but it ain't from Starbucks. Alright, we're playing a Sicilian. This is what we train for. Alright, I'll take that. Can't let him have the whole center. I'll trade a wing pawn for that central pawn. And he's going into the Smith Mora, which is a very hyper-aggressive kind of a thing to do. I know this is a potential move, but I think this is the theoretically best move. After this, let's figure out what to do after that. I'm not too sure, but we'll start like this. It may be theoretically best, maybe it's not. He has played this anyway. And I think we come here. I think that would be the most natural idea. And I do not know any of this theory. I'm guessing this player of 1833 rating playing the Smith Mora, which is a very sort of well-known and aggressive line to play, probably does know the theory. So I'm going to have to think here about what comes next, and it's going to be really difficult. I suppose this is a very natural move. I think this is also a very natural move. And of the two, this one perhaps prepares me to be able to get my bishop out and castle a little quicker. So I'm going to play this. And you'll note I didn't spend heaps and heaps of time on that move, because that is one thing I'm trying to do, is manage my time, perhaps better than I have in the past. So, of course, he's going to be able to take this pawn back at some point in time. And my basic idea is that I don't care about that, because I've already taken a pawn. If you want to take it back, that's basically your right. But the reason I don't want to take this pawn is it just helps him to be able to develop in a very natural way. Although now that I have my knight defended by my pawn, I would probably be justified in taking this, because if he takes back, I would then take here, ruining his pawn structure and just being a pawn up. So that's why he kind of had to take there. Now that my bishop's free, it is able to come and give a check immediately if I want to. Again, if he blocks it with his knight, I can take hitting the queen. And if he takes back, I take again, hitting these two with a fork that's going to win an exchange. So if I do this, he can't actually play with the knight. He can play with the knight, but it would have to be either here or putting the bishop here. The only other moves is give the queen up or run the king, neither of which he's going to do. So after this, I would expect a move like this or this. If he does it with the knight, well, then I can just castle, and basically I think I could claim there that I'm okay. After this move, I can either take as a bailout option, or I could drop back. And I think all those things are fine. There's also this check that should be mentioned. For instance, after this, he comes here. I could come, for instance, here, or I could just develop. I think these are all perfectly fine, so that's what I'm going to do. This is all very natural development, right? So how wrong can it be? Developing with a tempo, sure, he's going to develop also, but this is already a defended bishop. I'm getting ready to castle when I want. I can defend it again in a variety of different ways, or I could just trade it off whatever piece lands there. So I don't think it can be wrong, so I don't want to spend a million hours on the move. Okay, he puts his bishop there, which has the drawback of making this pawn undefended. So I could put my queen here. If I put my queen here and he takes, then I take back with a check. Not sure I really want to do that. Let's say he then just blocks the check. Do I even want to take this pawn? Maybe. Maybe not. Probably I should just castle. If he takes, I can always take back as mentioned. This is probably also a decent move. Let's do this. We don't need to think about this forever. And if he takes the bishop, I'll consider which way I want to take back. I think this would be the more natural. Again, I don't think I can be worse with these kinds of moves. And I do want to spend time and think, because I think that's probably been the reason I've been on a losing streak of late, is haven't been thinking enough. You have to think about the consequences if you want to play chess well. Can't just be done on instinct, feel, intuition. It just won't work. Now, we should be brainstorming in a sort of Naroditsky data collection style manner. So he's now developing his own knight. It makes a lot of sense. We wouldn't want to take for a variety of reasons. I think the primary reason is because he takes back with the pawn, hitting this bishop, and this bishop looks a bit locked out. I'm not too afraid of him taking here because I can take here and then take back. But at the same time, taking here does kind of ruin my pawns. So I can't say I love that. Love that for myself. I could also take with the bishop. Then if he takes with the pawn, at least my knight's still good. Perhaps another option is to bring my queen here, where it defends the knight, and also says if you move the knight, say here, then with my queen and bishop battery, I can go take. And, well, you know, at the very least, it seems to hold things in order. If he then tries to force play with my bishop, then I can take. Maybe. I can maybe take, because if he takes back, I could think about taking the pawn again, hitting the queen. But queen moves, and then my knight is pinned to my queen. So if something like this, I could do this and then just not take the pawn, you know, just castle. But at the same time, I could just castle right now. And if he takes, I take here, importantly. Actually, not actually that important. I could take either way. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, you know what, you want to take my pawn, you want to say that my pawn structure is not that good. Say that my pawn structure is not that good. At least I'm castled. And if we're opening up the E file, that's a file where my rook's going to land very, very shortly. Again, this bishop is defended adequately. He doesn't actually go for it. Maybe he should have, not sure, but he doesn't. He wants to get castled too, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm going to start slowing down, because to win you need to think. How are we going to do this? Something like this to attack the bishop would be nice, but he's actually defending that square. If I take here and he takes with the bishop, then I could do this. But regardless, this bishop can just always jump back, and it's always going to live on this long diagonal towards my king. Okay. So that's just a matter of fact. We want to come up with some nice ideas here. We want to probably try, if we can, to strike in the center while his king's still in the center. Now, it's not going to be possible because he just castles. But then we take. And if he takes back, our queen defends here. I think that's nice. This bishop gets a little bit more scope. This is also an option. As perhaps is this, building up this kind of pawn chain, blocking out this bishop on the diagonal it's currently on. That could be an idea. Though if he takes and I take back, this pawn structure is not amazing. So I think this move looks pretty nice, pretty natural. Pretty nice and natural. Again, if he takes here, I can just take back. I can simply take back. If he takes here, I can take back. Is there anything there? I'm hitting the bishop. The bishop is defended, but I am hitting the bishop. And still, you know, questioning whether we might get something like this. So I think I'm going to play this. Try and free my pieces a little bit. And try and break down these hanging pawns that he's got. This is possibly a weak pawn long term. He's going for something immediately here, which I assume works because he's obviously calculated it and he's higher rated than I am, but let's figure out what he's doing. If I take and he goes check, then I come back here, then he brings the queen in. And with the queen here and knight here, he's threatening a mate. which is going to be hard to stop. So let's see. I come here. What if I come... Okay, so I come back. He brings this queen in. I don't really see many ways that I can stop that. So maybe I just have to move here and not take the bishop. So that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Okay, it's just a pawn. It is also opening up my king side. So it's a nice move, and I should have been considering, you know, checks and captures. But I don't think it's the end of the world yet. He can attack my queen here, but I've got pawns that can do things, although moving these, you know, he's already taken a pawn around my king. If I start moving other pawns, my king in general is going to become very, very wide open. So of course I have to be careful, but let's just see what he wants to do next, because maybe he'll have to spend time retreating this bishop at some point. So yes, he's going to have a pawn, but if he has to at some point move this bishop back, then maybe I'll have compensation for the pawn and I'll gain an initiative somehow. Not sure. Would this move have been good? Perhaps. May it still be good, just to say, maybe even this move. This move might make some sense. Just to say this bishop can't really do much, and also to take this square away from the queen in some potential future. So let's say this, then I could take, because after check, firstly I can just step here, and secondly the queen can't come in because I would take it. So I think that's probably the move I'm threatening. And associated with that threat would be this. Let's say he tried to open things up, and I play this. Then he just does this. I take. He takes with check. I take. Then he can move the knight away, but it's not with check, which gives me time to play something like rook over. I think I should be right there. So I think this is the threat. I think he needs to deal with it, like I said, by moving the bishop back. He could maybe try bringing the knight in. That might be a way to try, but that does lose track of this pawn, and it doesn't really create any extra threat. So I could just take the pawn here. Maybe first taking this knight. So he does move the bishop back. Yep. Makes a lot of sense. So now what I want to do, probably I think, is just take this take this pawn. But it might be to take the knight here first. If he takes with the pawn, then I take here. And he might end up with this pawn and this pawn being weak. I think I like that, actually. I think I like that, because I'm planning this move next. So first off, this is going to be an isolated pawn, which it now is. Now I'm going to take here. And whether he takes with the knight first or not, whether he just takes like this, he's then going to have both of these as isolated pawns. The position's opening. His king's still in the center. I don't know, but I think I probably do have some kind of compensation here for the pawn. So I'm not going to lose hope yet just because I lost a pawn. I don't think that I've done anything wildly incorrect. All right, now at this point, we're going to have to start really thinking. So if we take, he just simply takes back. Doesn't seem like there should be anything there particularly good for me. If we take this pawn and he takes back, is there anything there? Highly doubt it. Highly, highly doubt it. But given all of this coming towards my king side, and given the way my king side looks quite bare, I have to be very, very aware what he may be up to. So I don't like that my bishop's not participating in the defense. I wish it was. Maybe that brings more reason to play a move like this, or even like this. It's just that it seems so weakening. It seems so weakening to play this way. Even if he sacrifices the knight, he then comes in with the queen with a check. I have to come here. And then he can bring in the bishop with a check. And I think that would ultimately lead to a mate. So be ready for some sort of a sacrifice here, potentially. That's how seriously careful we've got to be in this position. So I'm going to take some time and see if I can come up with something that's actually good. It's hard to bring my queen in to the defense because his pieces are guarding all the squares my queen might otherwise be able to use. My bishop's not doing much. My rook can't get over here. So certainly this hasn't really gone very, very well so far. If I do something like this, just trying to attack this bishop, there's many reasons I don't like that. Sorry, this pawn. Again, there's this, which is just very dangerous because it threatens this check. So I think I probably have to take this square away from him regardless. Much as I don't really want to do that, I might have to. Can I afford this? He jumps the knight down. Well, then I can't really play this because the bishop comes in. So we might have to play this, as much as I really don't want to. I don't want to, but this square is so tender with the possibility of the queen coming in. And this way my king can come to g7, my rook can get over to the queen side, as can my queen. And hopefully we can stabilize the position a little bit. Let's see. I think he can probably just castle here. He's got that as a useful move. But my development's actually really not very good. So what do I want to do? I mean, maybe this move. But if he takes, again, this pawn becomes so weak, my king's so weak, I could take with my queen. So let's say he takes en passant, I take back. He can immediately attack me, which does give up a pawn, to be fair, but not sure that's really the way we want to do this. I'm really not liking this position. Something like this, just to attack the pawn, should now be possible. He can defend the pawn, obviously. This bishop's just doing nothing. He's got a good clamp on my position. It's pretty awful, really. It's really awful. What am I to do? Having a little think here. I guess this move makes sense. It's a bit slow in the sense that still nothing happening with any of these pieces. But maybe it will. Maybe I can actually use this open h-file to my advantage rather than his. I don't know. But I don't see what else I can usefully do. At least with my king on g7, it defends the pawn on g6 to some extent. So maybe moves like this might be more possible in the future. So I think I could consider this move right away. Attacks the bishop. If he takes back, he takes with check. I can then take with my knight. But my knight is pinned, which I don't love. I'd be offering a queen trade, but I don't think that's great either. But it might be. It might be the endgame, even though I'm down a pawn, he's got these weak pawns to consider as well. But this move might be a little bit simpler, just keeping a bit of protection around my king, aiming at this pawn twice, and also aiming at this pawn once. So what does he do after that? He can give a check, but I can always just take that. If he does something like this, which he does, then I have to really consider what I'm doing. I can attack the queen, but what after that? Because the queen's obviously just going to move. Could I do something like this? Give him the knight. Probably not. Maybe I can do this actually. This could be a nice idea. In fact, this could be a nice idea. Because if I take the pawn and then he takes the knight here, then I take this with check, and after he takes back, I take the bishop. So that's the idea of moving the knight away. If this knight wasn't here, if the knight wasn't there, then there would be a pin going against this pawn, saying if you take my knight, I can take the bishop almost, except that the bishop is defended by the queen. But if I do this, he takes, then not sure. I can also just move this back. That's an option. I can simply move this back. Or I can use this knight to attack this bishop. All possibilities. This one's probably not too bad because it saves the knight. It blocks the bishop's view of d8. So I could also bring the rook across this way if I want to. And this knight can always come up here as well, potentially. So that could be a plan. But yeah, this idea is also potentially an idea. But if he just simply takes my knight straight away, then I take the knight back. And then if he takes this knight, I can take this bishop. If he takes the pawn, I can take a pawn. So I actually think this move might be good. If he takes here, like I said, I take there. He can take, though, with the pawn, ruining his own pawn structure. Ruins his own pawn structure, but at that time, I can bring my rook across to h8, utilizing the pressure I would have against this here. And he could maybe then push this pawn forward to block out my queen. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting idea, this one. Again, I'm going to look at this quickly. If he takes, I take back. If he takes again, I take here, and I think we're fine. But if this and he takes the knight, if this and he takes the knight, I take. If he takes with the queen, I take the bishop. He then attacks my queen, but I drop back, seeking trades. I think there we're okay. This, he takes with the pawn. This, all very interesting. Then I can attack the bishop. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try it. I'm also attacking this pawn. If he doesn't take. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on that move, but I think it was worth spending time on in the first round of this tournament. Obviously, we've got a strong opponent on the first round, but if we can come out of it even with a draw, that'd be nice. With a win would set us up really nicely. So we're just going to do what we can. think that was a nice move, really. My king's actually relatively safe. Even if moves like this are played, I can go check, and after he takes back, I can take back. So he takes the knight. So the variation was to take here. If he takes with the queen, I take the bishop. If he takes with the pawn... All right, so I'm going to do this then. If I do this, he's probably going to take here. I think that's all right. I just take back. Yeah. That was the idea. Let's see if it works out. Oh, I guess he can push this pawn forward now, making it a pretty dangerous passed pawn. I'll probably then have to develop my bishop to blockade. And we'll have to see what happens there. He could attack my queen, and when my queen moves, could he even sack for the bishop? I don't know about that. I think he probably should get this passed pawn happening. I think that's what he should do. No, he gives a check. That's also nice from his perspective. Now, I either block my rook's ability to come to the H file in one way, shape, or form, which I don't love doing, but it might have to be done. My pawn here does do a good job of blocking this queen off. Also, if I come here, he can give me a check from this direction. And then if I come here, he's got mate. Ooh, that could be really bad. So that means that's not an option, which means I could either come here, but still check there is actually a mate already. So this is completely forced. I might already be losing after this move, which threatens checkmate. And I don't see actually any way for me to protect myself from that mate. I think it's all over, actually. Unfortunately, I think this first round is over because I don't see a defense after this. I need a way to protect this square, and I just can't get there in time. Can't move my rook away because he still gets in here. I can't do this because he still gets in here. This is over. This is a resign. Interesting. I mean, I didn't think I played too badly, but the Smith-Morra, like I say, is renowned for being extremely aggressive, extremely dangerous and sharp. I don't know any of the theory in the opening. Maybe this was the right move, maybe the wrong move. Maybe that was the right or wrong move. But I think I actually played pretty reasonably. All of these moves to me make sense. And maybe that was just what I missed, was this idea of this sacrifice opening things up. Maybe a move like this straight away would have made sense, or like I was saying, maybe something like this straight away would have made sense. But unfortunately, we'll have a look at it afterwards. I think that we had some good thinks during this game anyway. But I'm not sure why he's thinking so long. Like, isn't this relatively obvious? There's just no way to defend the mate, so I would have thought he would have known this move already. Why is he thinking? This shouldn't be that hard, right? He's played quickly all game. I mean, you got the most obvious move on the board that leads to, no matter what I do, checkmate. Because if you do this, I just can't move my king anywhere. All these squares are taken. And I can't move this forward to make room. There we go. He's finally got it. So, yeah, there's nothing I can do. There's this to attack the queen for what it's worth. But you just get mated anyway. There's no way to do anything about it, unfortunately. So I'm going to resign. Let me have one more look, actually, just to make sure. Just to make sure there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. We'll have a quick look if there's time before the next round begins. We'll have a quick look at what went wrong in this game. What went wrong in this game, I'd like to know. Must have been when I allowed that bishop sacrifice on h7. But otherwise, other than that, I felt I'd played quite well. Oh, he played with quite a high degree of precision there. 99.3, that's impressive. Okay, so these are all book moves, so far so good. That was a slight inaccuracy, and apparently here castling was a blunder. And what I should have done instead was immediately go for d6. But it's not a huge mistake. I mean, at this level, going from white having a minuscule advantage to having a small advantage isn't the end of the world. But then playing d6 does give white, a +2 advantage. And playing h6 first would have been the better way to go. Fair enough. But after that, I missed an opportunity to win a bishop. So you're saying I should have taken the bishop? Well, I thought that was a deadly move. So anyway, after that it seems I played actually very well. So take, take. This move was fine. That was good. And I'm proud of this move, actually. This was a nice move. You're attacking my knight. I didn't just retreat. I thought, I was creative, and I came up with a good creative solution, which is actually objectively justified. Unfortunately, my opponent just played with computer-like accuracy and got mated. Would have, so I resigned. So that's the first round done. And my opponent's sitting on the top of the leaderboard. I am right down, coming 12th. The next round should be starting before too long. There's only 2 games still ongoing. We can have a quick look at them just to see where they're up to. This one looks like it's got a little while to go, at least a few minutes. And the other one, it's getting down to the pointy end in both of them. So that's all right. We will just wait. We'll wait for the next round to begin. I will pause the video and I'll come back at the start of the next round. Better luck next time, eh? All right, we're back. We have white this time for round 2 against Jehonathan Mend. Not going to waste any time in this opening. We're going to go with the Ruy Lopez exchange variation if prompted. Probably the most famous of chess openings, this one. Now, I think this might already be a move. This might also be a move. I'm not sure. If we do this, he could also take. We take, he takes. I've got to believe there we're pretty good, though. I'm not completely sure. We could just take and play this, but it opens up his queen. So I am taking a moment here to think. And we could certainly just castle as well. But let's have a look at this. My idea is that if he takes the knight, we play d4, and we've got this beautiful fork going on. There he can give a check, but that's no good. We either take in one of 2 ways, and even if he takes the pawn here, we're doing very well there. So I don't think he can actually take. I think the only move to really consider is this check. Maybe even this instead. But if either of those, well, if he comes in with the queen, I'd say at that point we could actually play this. or just castles, even better. And if he then takes, we still have this. So I think this is working. And after this, he's given up a lot of material, but he does regather the knight for the bishop. So it's all actually relatively equal. We then get a nice central pawn mass, and we're ready to castle by hand, essentially at will. But I am taking time here. If instead we castle, there's obviously so many different options for him. But I think defending this pawn would be the most important thing for him to do at that time. And then the game just goes on. We take if we want. So I'm just going to calculate this a bit more. Again, if he tries and threatens mate here, as mentioned, we castle. And if he then takes the knight, we play this with the fork. If he takes the pawn, we take back, hitting the knight. And we're getting a lot of development there. All he's got is his queen, and I would evaluate that that's probably going to be better for us. And as mentioned, if this and this, we take. If then check, we can even hit the queen. If he comes back here, with another check, we drop back. And I think this actually works. I want to be completely certain of it though, hey. Like, it is a bit scary. But I think with this idea, we should be right. I think we should be right. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it. That's all I can do. It's not like I haven't thought about it. He could counterattack our bishop, I suppose. Even there we could take the pawn and then take back, potentially. We'll see. Okay. So he's just giving back the piece immediately, as he probably should. He might then come in for this mate threat, but we can castle out of that threat pretty straightforwardly. What other options have we got? We could castle, just say you can keep all of this extra material, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I think we do have to try. Again, in the case of these checks, I think these moves just are fine. It doesn't actually go for any of those. So we've so far won a pawn. This pawn does a nice job of restricting the knight. He seems to be playing with a bit of fire here, giving us this material and not going for the attack. We could nullify his bishop straight away. It's true that we would end up with tripled pawns here. But those tripled pawns actually control a lot of squares. And they're not that easy to attack. Another idea that's come to mind is we could put the queen here and attack this pawn. If he were to castle to defend the pawn, then we can bring the other bishop out here. And he can't take because he would be pinned. But meanwhile, we'd be threatening checkmate here. And we would have to push this forward and we'd take the rook. But in response to this, he doesn't have to castle. In response to this, he could play this, which attacks the pawn and also blocks the attack on this. Could he even... No, he couldn't do this because this pawn's pinned. This pawn is pinned. That's a good thing to know. So if we wanted to push this pawn forward, he can't take. He can only take like this. That's the only way he can take, is like this. And of course, if he doesn't take, then we're threatening to take in one way or the other. So if he takes like this, we've got check, which might be annoying for him to deal with. So I quite like this idea, in fact. If he takes, we have to be very precise in the calculation. Check. Perhaps this. And then what have we gained? Maybe not enough. Maybe we should just castle. Put a rook to guard this pawn. That makes this less scary. And we just say we're a pawn better. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to castle. We're going to castle and say, got an extra pawn. You didn't disturb our king when you had a chance. So what's stopping me now from just continuing development in a natural way? Not much. Again, he's always got this. This is a pinned pawn, so I can't even play f4 if I want to due to the bishop. One idea would be move the king out of the way. It's a possibility. Another idea would be challenge the bishop. Again, we do take on tripled pawns there. I think it's likely he might play a move like this and attack my bishop, and then further expand in the center, at which point I'll take, he might take back. So what if I do this to start with? Of course, the moment he moves this pawn, I can take. Even if he does move it here, I can take. So this and this, I just take. He'd take with the queen. Things aren't looking bad there, I don't think. I'm going to just develop my knight. I could develop my bishop where it pins his knight to his queen. I don't think he wants to play something like this to attack my bishop and block the attack, because then he opens up this diagonal towards the king. I could play something like a4, threatening a5. Not a huge threat. This could be just a nice, simple, easy move. What does he want to do? I'm not super afraid of any of this stuff, really. I think he probably wants to go after this pawn at some point, so it would be nice if I can guard it. So I'm going to play this king h1. King h1 on the board. And he goes after this pawn. And I guess I'll follow up as intended with f4, opening up my rook. This pawn is well defended. Defending this extra pawn that I have. And playing with the logical continuation of the reason I put my king on h1 was to open this pawn up. So there's a harmony that's built into the position at the moment for me. My bishop here doesn't really look like it's doing a lot, and it's not. And he can, kick it away somehow, but I can just reposition it somewhere. So he's really not threatening anything here, I don't think. I don't think there's a threat associated with that. He can't come in with any further checks. There's no threat of this. It's covered a million times. I'm not sure what he's actually doing here. I don't think there's a big threat associated. So I can just continue my own development and say, I don't care about your knight. If you take that, I'm just going to take. If you then come in like this, I mean, why should I care? I've got everything defended really nicely. So in the meantime, I can just develop. If I want to, I could play this, but then he does, develop this pawn and the bishop behind it with a tempo on my queen. I can't take the knight because it's guarded by the queen. I don't think there's any point in pushing this pawn because it opens up my king too much. This move doesn't work because he simply takes. So, sort of by a process of elimination here, I'll just develop my knight. In the future, it might come here and attack this bishop. We'll see. Or it might come around this way even, potentially. Okay, so now he attacks this bishop as expected. Many places I can put this bishop if I want. This seems like a very natural space for it, where it's on the same diagonal as the king. But I could also put it here where it's defended by the pawn and also guards this other pawn, just to make things really solid. Then if he actually goes, I'm going to do this. It's really solid, so that's one thing I like. And secondly, if we ever get down this line where I take and he takes with the queen, maybe we can follow up with pushing this pawn to hit the queen. And if the queen happens to go, actually there is no undefended square, all of these are defended, but I was looking at maybe tactics that involve sacrificing, quote unquote sacrificing. I actually didn't think about that move at all. I probably could have played this. Yeah, that's what I should have done. That was the initial idea here. Unfortunately, I didn't play it. Was to go take, he takes, and then take with my knight. And then if he had taken, I would have this check move. After he takes, I win the queen. Not that that was a forced line, so this is still fine. Absolutely fine. What I could do even is this. Now I am attacking the knight since his queen doesn't defend it anymore. So he has to do something about the attacked knight, which doesn't have many great squares to go to. If he tries to defend it like this, well, that simply doesn't work. I just take and then take the knight anyway. So this is a big move right now. If he takes here, I just take. And sure, my king's very open, but I have a lot of material here and everything's pretty harmonious. And if he jumps the knight back here, then I can attack the queen. The queen's going to have to move somewhere. And when it does, I can take the knight off the board as a potential idea. So if I do this and he comes here, I could also attack this way. Then let's say he comes here. Many different ideas. I could attack this bishop if I want to keep things a bit more direct. But yeah, this move, he comes here. This move hits the queen. Where does the queen go? Here? Because then I can do this. Hitting the knight again. Queen, knight takes. I come here. I don't think I'm quite ready for it. I don't see the follow-up here. I don't quite see it. There is this, by all means. And I just don't quite see it. Maybe I start with this move, hitting the queen. Hit the queen to start with and open up this bishop to start with. If the queen just comes back, then there's check. And if he takes, there's another check and win this. So I think I quite like this idea, in fact. Queen can't come here. If he comes here, again, the check moves work. So he might have to actually come like here again, or here, to defend the knight. But if he's here, then I can also do this. I'm attacking the queen again. And if we start getting more trades, I think things are going to be fine for me. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to attack this queen. Yeah, and if I could go back in time, I would have spent a little bit more time here. Instead of taking en passant, I would have taken like this to open up this bishop immediately. Okay, so he comes here, but he's not threatening mate. That must be said. My rook does a great job. So I think now, I can win another pawn through the aforementioned check. And if he takes, then there's this check, forcing him back, and I pick up the knight, and everything's dandy. But there's also this immediately. I don't think that's as good. There's also this with my knight, or this, so there's plenty of moves here. These moves are all nice. This one might be exceptional because it hits the queen. Where does the queen go there? Or this one hits the queen, and when the queen moves, which it has to, then I can take the bishop off the board and then go down this line only afterwards. Except that it gives him an opportunity to retreat the queen to a square that actually works a little bit better, so that this wouldn't work anymore. So I'm going to go with this idea. I'm going to take the pawn first with check. If he moves the king, well, then I can still do this. And only if he moves away, I can still take and then retreat the bishop and say I've got even more material now than I did before. So he takes. I go check. He's going to have to move back. And then we take the knight. We're guarding everything very nicely. And we've got extra material. This move is lingering in the air to try and force further trades. This move can't be played yet. Okay, he's attacking a pawn. Understandably so. But I'm not super afraid. If I do something like this, we could trade queens and I give an exchange up. I don't see any reason why I should do that. I could attack his queen immediately. Like this, like I was saying earlier. This hits the queen. And then I can take this. I think I quite like that. Let's do it. He can take here. And after I take, he takes. But then I come here. And I think things unwind in my favor there. So we'll try this. I'm expecting this. Maybe I could, at that point, like I say, take, he takes, I do this, hitting the queen. I could even drop my own queen back here. That might even be more clinical. Attacking the queen and also attacking this pawn, essentially forcing a queen trade. Keeping everything nice. There's also this, is this better? I'm not sure. Hits the queen. Queen then has check. Forcing me back. No, so I'm gonna bring my queen back, in fact. I'm gonna bring my queen back and I'd happily accept a trade in a position where I don't really have many weaknesses. I have an extra pawn. I have very little time, but with the extra pawn and the weaknesses, should be enough time to manage. Do get an extra 10 seconds every move. All right, so he wants to keep things on board, and that's fine. I'm going to attack this pawn. If he wants to trade here, I'm okay with that. Seems he doesn't want to. How do I proceed here? Giving him this pawn may not have been the best idea, but then I can come... Okay, he doesn't want it. Fine. I'll do this then. These pawns can't be attacked by his bishop, and I've blocked off his rook for the time being. My bishop, on the other hand, can just swerve in and out of his pawns, which is always, or relatively always, nice. If I want, I can attack this. I can do it all in a variety of ways. I can offer trades. Yeah, being low on time obviously never helps, but it's better than being in a lost position with plenty of time, but nothing you can possibly do about it. Obviously, when it comes to the Chess Club Championship, I am going to have a lot more time because the games are longer. In these games, there's not a lot of time. Now, I didn't think about this move, but it develops the rook with a tempo against the queen. It allows me to double up the other rook. And so I'm not afraid of it being that bad. How can it be that bad when it gives me dominance over the d file? Now, I can come up with this if there's nothing else. I can always do this. If he pushes the pawn, sure, I can't necessarily. But I can also do this. That's another move that could come to mind. Guarded by this bishop to attack the queen. This move he takes. Okay, that seems like a mistake. I think that's a mistake. Because I'm attacking both of these now. And yeah, you can go check, but that shouldn't really help. I just come here. The rooks defend each other. Your queen's under attack. I've got a lot of material now. Now I can even come here, threatening this mate. I like this move a bit because it offers a bishop, which he might fall for. He has to deal with the mate threat first and foremost, which he does. Then I can just bring my bishop back. Overprotect this square. Just saying, hey man, everything's defended except this rook. Oh, now I come here. Where do I want to go? Probably here. At least I'm defended here, and I could be threatening this, this, and this. I'm going to start with this though. I don't want to give my rook away if it doesn't 100% work. Meanwhile, just pushing my pawn forward is, I think, without risk. This isn't risky at all. So now I like this. Again, my rook is defended. My bishop's now able to play as well, so this is looking like it's about to end for him. Let's go check. This is a big check. He comes here, we've got this check. And then we're getting closer and closer to a mate. Our rook guards this square. If he comes here, can we finish him off with a bishop? Not quite because of this. But we can bring our queen over, and that looks to me like mate. And there it is. So we were low on time, but only because we were thinking. And I guess because we were thinking, we ended up winning the game. Not without our fair share of blunders, apparently. Let's have a quick look at it. This first decision here was to take the pawn. And it's fine. I mean, it's basically even. I don't think he responded amazingly. I mean, that was fine. Not really, actually. So after d4... Actually, d4 was not the right move. That's interesting. Just make sure I got time to have a quick analysis of here. Still a few games ongoing, so we can have a quick analysis of this game. So maybe the correct move here was, well, probably d4, yep. After he moves back, took the knight. But I thought this move wasn't so great. The computer agrees, it just gives me enough time to do what I want to do, which is, I think, castle. And now, I'm doing fine, doing well. He castles, and I played this rook h1 move, which seems a bit slow, but actually computer agrees that it's a really nice move because I'm trying to protect this pawn with this pawn, which was otherwise pinned. So now, even though he attacks the pawn, I was able to defend it. And his job is already difficult here. I thought this move also wasn't very good because although it maybe looked scary initially, just a bit of sober calculation realized that this was nothing scary. There was no follow-up. Everything is defended. And so I just developed, which is fine. He attacks my bishop. I brought my bishop back to a very safe square. And then here on d5, I regretted my choice of taking en passant. Although the computer says obviously that's still fine. I was preferring, at the time I said I would have liked this move instead, which I think the computer says isn't actually quite as good, but I think it's very nice. My idea was if he takes back, I take. And he can't take the knight because I go check. And whether he takes or steps away, I take the queen. So, nevertheless, taking en passant as I did was also perfectly nice, and my position's very good. I then attacked the queen to open up this bishop with the idea of check and then capturing the knight. And that seemed to work because, again, he's got this queen-bishop battery going on, but there was actually no threats. Everything was defended. So I went forward with this idea, and that's actually a big mistake according to the computer. Still have a nice advantage. But apparently there were better moves here. I wonder what it liked, if it liked this move. I mean, I rejected this move, but the computer says it's good. The reason I rejected it was because of this. And I didn't see what the big deal was, essentially. Maybe it's just something like this, like similar to what I did in the game. It still says that's a bit better than what I did, but I don't think what I did was wrong because it was something I could understand. And it led to this position, which actually the computer says is still better for me, but not a lot better, very interestingly. But solidly better. I was happy with solidly better. He brought his bishop out. That seemed like a good move. And here I went for the trades, which is a big mistake. So there's a big blunder. So what's the issue here? Why is this a big blunder? What have I allowed? Don't understand. What could be so wrong about this move? The way he responded was also a blunder, indicating he didn't see why what I did was wrong. I'm very curious. See if we can get some variations, although it never seems to work for me for some reason. Bring up a different analysis board and see if we can get this answer. So the best move here was Queen b5. Ooh, that's nice. Threatening checkmate, and also threatening my knight. So if you just go ahead and take the bishop, which is what I had blindly assumed, you know, he moves the queen, I take the bishop, then you just get mated. So you got to be careful, you got to check your assumptions. It's not just, oh, the queen moves and then I take. It's where does the queen move? These ones aren't scary, but this one or this one do both look very scary because of the forks that they entail. Very nice. Anyway, as played, I brought my queen back. And the position is roughly equal. I'm a little bit better still, objectively. I think I did actually make a few mistakes in the sense that he probably should have taken here, I would imagine. But especially here, I think he probably should have taken. But when he moved away and allowed me to play a3, now I think I'm again in the driver's seat. And I can just basically play in a simple fashion and still have a basic advantage. Nothing groundbreaking, but something. He avoided the trade, but that let me develop my rooks very nicely. And this was probably the last blunder because of this double attack. Now he has to give up the bishop in a kamikaze attempt. And here I was able to threaten a checkmate. Once he dealt with it, brought the bishop back. And here there was really nothing he could do. The advantage is absolutely huge. I'm piling up a lot of pressure. He's got no way to generate attacks against me. And the rest was easy. So we'll leave that analysis there. We can see there's a couple of little games still ongoing. So I'll just pause the video and we'll come back again for round 3. So far so good. We got 1 out of 2. We lost in the first round to a guy that played perfectly, even though we played pretty well ourselves. So we'll see what happens in the third round. If we win, then we're still doing well in the tournament. If we lose, well, we'll see. So regardless, we'll catch you soon. Catch you soon. Catch you soon. Catch you soon.